After more than 3 decades of conflict, two long-standing adversaries have signed a peace agreement that could reshape an entire region. Yet this deal is about far more than simply ending a war. It revolves around pipelines as much as peace, and power projection as much as diplomacy. At the center of it all lies one strategic corridor, a narrow passage that has Tehran, Moscow, and Ankara watching very closely. Welcome back to Geopolitical Owl, where behind every border lies a blueprint. I'm your host, and this is the final chapter in our Armenia-Azerbaijan series. Today, we examine the agreement many believed was impossible, and the geopolitical tremor it is now sending across the South Caucasus. On August 8, 2025, a remarkable scene unfolded at the White House. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev sat side by side, initialing a peace agreement brokered by President Donald Trump. Their conflict, rooted in the final years of the Soviet Union, has claimed thousands of lives and displaced over 800,000 people. Its core was Nagorno-Karabakh, an ethnically Armenian enclave inside Azerbaijan's internationally recognized borders. Armenia's defeat in the 2020 war and Azerbaijan's full takeover of the region in 2023 fundamentally shifted the geopolitical balance. Notably, Pashinyan made difficult concessions to secure peace, while Aliyev used continued pressure to bolster domestic authority. What sets this deal apart is not only what was agreed, but where. Previous negotiations centered on Moscow, Paris, or Brussels. This time, Washington led and gained a 99-year strategic presence in the South Caucasus. The agreement confirms mutual recognition of borders and includes the construction of a transport route connecting Azerbaijan to its Nakhchivan exclave via Armenian territory. Named the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, TRIPP, it remains Armenian sovereign land. But the U.S. holds exclusive development rights, enabling roads, pipelines, rail, and digital infrastructure aimed at reducing Iranian, Russian, and Chinese influence in the region. Armenia emerged from the deal with critical lifelines. The agreement provides U.S.-backed border security assistance aimed at preventing the kind of Azerbaijani incursions that defined the 2020 war. Yerevan also agreed to remove constitutional language hinting at unification with Nagorno-Karabakh, easing one of Baku's long-standing political fears. In return, Armenia gains energy and economic partnerships, notably American investment in renewable infrastructure and diversification away from dependence on Russian gas. Strategically, this signals a pivot from isolation toward a Western economic orbit, with the potential to unlock nearly $2 billion in annual trade. For ordinary Armenians, it may mean safer border communities and new employment. Azerbaijan, meanwhile, gains the prize it has pursued for decades: uninterrupted transit between mainland Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan. The newly designated Trump Route allows cargo and energy networks to move across Armenian territory without internal checkpoints, boosting an estimated $500 million in annual trade flows and advancing President Aliyev's long-term post-oil diversification plans. Azerbaijan also retains leverage through ongoing legal claims for war damages. Both governments present the deal as victory, but along the frontier, both populations remain cautious, unsure whether peace is permanent or merely a pause. To understand why Tehran views this corridor as an existential threat, you simply need to look at a map. For decades, Iran relied on its northern border to maintain land access to Armenia, the Caucasus, and Europe, an access route that translated into economic leverage and political influence. The Trip Corridor changes that dramatically. By linking Turkey and mainland Azerbaijan to Nakhchivan and onward to Central Asia, the route allows trade to bypass Iran entirely, stripping Tehran of a transit monopoly worth over $100 million annually and undermining its role as the region's gatekeeper. The corridor threatens to become the final blow to Iran's regional leverage, forcing Tehran into dependence on Azerbaijan for access to Russia and Europe and tightening the strategic pressure on its northern frontier. But the threat isn't only economic. The corridor places U.S.-built infrastructure and potentially U.S. strategic assets directly on Iran's northern border, at a time when Tehran's regional influence is already eroding following the 2025 conflict with Israel. Iranian officials have issued stark warnings, yet despite military drills and fierce rhetoric, Tehran lacks the capability to shut the project down. The reality is unavoidable. Where Iran once shaped the Caucasus, it now risks becoming a bystander to its transformation. For Iran, the corridor is deeply unsettling. It bypasses Iranian territory, threatens key revenue streams, and strengthens a Sunni-Turkic axis along its frontier. The diplomacy may be quiet, but the anxiety is unmistakably loud. This agreement sends shockwaves across the region, particularly for Russia, Turkey, and Iran. For Moscow, the losses are substantial. Armenia's gradual disengagement from the CSTO leaves Russia's security pact weakened, while the withdrawal of Russian peacekeepers by year's end signals a diminishing military footprint. Even more damaging is the loss of diplomatic primacy. Mediation over the Armenian-Azerbaijani conflict is no longer centered in Moscow, but increasingly in Washington. With the war in Ukraine consuming resources and attention, the Kremlin faces a strategic vacuum in the Caucasus. Gazprom's traditional leverage also erodes as new Western-backed energy corridors emerge, potentially costing Russia billions in influence and transit power. Ordinary Russians may view this shift with indifference, but within policy circles, the symbolic setback is unmistakable. Turkey, conversely, emerges as a beneficiary. The corridor reinforces a continuous Turkic arc from Istanbul to Baku and onward to Central Asia, an embodiment of Ankara's long-standing strategic vision. Trade flows are set to expand significantly, strengthening Turkey's economic and political ties across the region. Yet this new alignment complicates Ankara's already fragile relationship with Armenia, where historical memory remains deeply painful. The August ceremony marked a beginning, not an ending. Critical challenges remain. First, domestic politics in Armenia could obstruct implementation. Prime Minister Pashinyan must pursue a constitutional referendum to remove language that Azerbaijan interprets as territorial claims, an emotionally charged step in a nation still grieving the loss of Nagorno-Karabakh. Deep polarization, institutional distrust, and competing historical narratives may complicate consensus. Second, the durability of U.S. involvement is uncertain. Washington has a history of shifting strategic focus. If American attention wavers, Armenia could find itself exposed to pressure without adequate security guarantees. Economic benefits from the corridor may take years to unfold, while military risks are immediate. Third, external actors may intervene. Russia has strong incentives to undermine a process that sidelines its influence. Should the Kremlin regain strategic bandwidth, particularly if the Ukraine conflict stabilizes, it may seek to reassert itself in the South Caucasus. Iran, too, may use proxies or economic leverage to slow the corridor's development. Fourth, border demarcation remains incomplete. Azerbaijani forces continue to hold sections of Armenian territory, and Baku demands further constitutional revisions before final treaty ratification. Without enforceable oversight, this could become another temporary ceasefire rather than a lasting peace. Yet there are grounds for cautious optimism. Economic interdependence discourages conflict, Turkey backs the process, and both societies increasingly prioritize stability over unresolved grievances. The 2025 Armenia-Azerbaijan peace deal ultimately poses one defining question. Can a U.S.-led security and economic framework replace the Russian-centered order that shaped the post-Soviet Caucasus? The answer will influence not only this region, but conflicts across Eurasia. Thank you for joining the Geopolitical Owl Armenia-Azerbaijan series finale. If this analysis was valuable, please like, share, and subscribe. Remember, behind every border lies a blueprint. Next time, we'll decode a new emerging frontier. Until then, stay sharp.